He said, "My country is at war, fighting for its life. But after the lies and slanders levelled at Israel, I decided to come and set the record straight." What stood out in what was a pretty comprehensive speech from the Israeli Prime Minister to you?
Well, clearly the defiance stood out, and clearly singling out Iran and painting this picture of either blessings or something far worse, a curse, and holding up those maps. In many ways, this was sort of vintage Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This is where he actually feels comfortable, where he is speaking to an audience, where he feels that he is a master orator, and he was delivering clearly his version and his belief. But it's not the first time we've heard him single out Iran. I think any of us that were looking to try to see if there was a nuance in there about this potential ceasefire with between Israel and Hezbollah on the northern border, I think his continued references to America and France about how Hezbollah and Iran as well had been responsible for killing your citizens was kind of getting specific on this was your initiative, but examine this, why don't you? I mean, look, the big takeaway here has to be this is a Prime Minister who's not climbing down from anything he's said, who doubled down on everything that is said so far, the demand for the hostages back, his position, his view, and the takeaway has to be at the moment, in this moment of escalating tensions across the northern border, is there was nothing in there that told us those escalating tensions are going to be tamped down in any way in the short term, Becky.
And let me bring in Ben Wiedemann, who is in Tyre in Lebanon. On Hezbollah, Benjamin Netanyahu said, and I quote, "Enough is enough. We won't rest until our citizens can return safely to their homes," echoing what we've heard from the defence minister earlier today, and a stated aim of the Israeli government, or certainly the Prime Minister at this point. What did you make of what you heard?
Becky, if you take into account what you just said and the fact that I don't think I heard the word ceasefire once in that speech, that clearly Israel is set on its current air campaign and perhaps a ground incursion to try to push Hezbollah back. Now, for instance, he did say that Hezbollah has a missile in every kitchen and a rocket in every garage. That sort of sends a rather alarming message to people here, because the fact of the matter is, in South Lebanon, there is not a missile in every kitchen and a rocket in every garage, but this seems to indicate that Israel considers every house, every kitchen, every garage to be a legitimate target. But broadly speaking, this was classic Netanyahu, in which he divides the world into black and white, good and evil. He talks about the curse, and of course we're in Lebanon, which is part of that curse. I think people would scratch their heads a bit, because the fact of the matter is the Middle East is an area of grays. There's no black and white. Certainly take into consideration that Israel has occupied the West Bank, East Jerusalem, the Golan Heights, and essentially occupied Gaza, despite the fact that settlers pulled out in 2005. That is an open wound in the region that Israel has not really done much to treat. There was a peace process at one point, but that didn't go anywhere. And certainly the rhetoric that comes out of Israel from some of the extremists sends a very dark message to the region, that this is not necessarily a question of good and evil, that there are extremists on both sides of the conflict, and those extremists on both sides are really the ones who are driving this conflict forward. And what we're seeing increasingly is that the United States, under the current administration in this election season in the United States, has really just put the Middle East on a back burner, throwing lots of rhetoric and encouraging words about diplomacy and peace in the Middle East and whatnot. But the fact of the matter is very little is actually being done about it. The U.S. and France put forward what they called was a ceasefire proposal, but it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And every day in Gaza, in Lebanon, more people are dying. More people are being killed. Becky?
Gershon, let me bring you in here before I also ask for some analysis from Gideon. On the issue of Gaza, very specifically, he said there is no substitute for total victory in Gaza. He said, we do not seek to resettle Gaza. We seek to de-radicalize it. We're focused on mapping up the remaining elements of Hamas and let them go, he said of the hostages. Those who are alive must be returned alive, and the remains of those who are dead must be returned. There is no substitute, and I repeat this, for total victory in Gaza. So we're just sort of describing some of what, or reliving, as it were, some of what a very defiant Benjamin Netanyahu has just said at the UN in New York. On the issue of Gaza, what do you take out of what you've just heard?
Listen, Netanyahu is living in a world of delusion. There is no total victory in Gaza, and there is a deal on the table. And this is what the world needs to understand. This is what the Americans need to know. They know it. They've seen the deal. Hamas has agreed to a 3-week deal, during which time the war would end, Israel would evacuate Gaza, there would be an agreed upon release of Palestinian prisoners, and Hamas will return all of the hostages. This is not only a deal on the ceasefire, but Hamas has also agreed that they are supporting the establishment of a civilian, technocratic, professional government in Gaza, of which they will not have a part of. They are willing for this government to be empowered because they know that if they rule Gaza, there won't be a single dollar of international aid going into rebuild Gaza, and Gaza is destroyed. There's nothing left in Gaza. 2 million homeless people, disease, devastation, no sanitation, no fresh water, no schools, no universities, nothing. Gaza needs to be rebuilt, and it needs a responsible Palestinian government to do it. Now, we asked Hamas if they're talking about turning over internal security and their weapons to the new civilian, professional, technocratic government, and they said yes. But what I say to the Americans, to the Israelis, to everyone is, don't listen to me. This is on the table. I have it in writing. I have voice messages from Hamas saying it. The officials need to check it. And President Biden needs to understand in his final months in office that his legacy is either going to be the war in Gaza or ending the war in Gaza. And we all know that the day that the war in Gaza ends, the war in Lebanon ends, and we need to get into the diplomatic path. There is no solution to this conflict without the freedom of Palestine, the establishment of an independent Palestinian state next to Israel, the realization of the two-state solution. This is the way forward, and this is the way to defeat extremists, not through weapons, not through wars, not through killing.
Gideon, your thoughts?
It was so embarrassing, Becky, embarrassing and pathetic, because Netanyahu is a good speaker, no doubt about this, a very impressive one. But today I think he reached one of the lowest points of Israeli propaganda. To speak about blessing in the Middle East, after killing over 40,000 people in Gaza and distracting Gaza, and to bring Gaza to a stage in which it's nothing but the humanitarian catastrophe, and to speak about blessing. By the time that you stand on the stage, on the podium of the UN, your army is continuing to kill both in Lebanon and in Gaza, and you speak about blessing. You know, he spoke about de-radicalizing Gaza and demilitarizing Gaza. What about the radicalization of Israel? Netanyahu is today hostage of the most radical fascist partners in his coalition. What about de-radicalizing Israel, who in the last year speaks only in one language, the language of force, the language of brutality, many times the language of barbarism? Where is the ceasefire? You don't speak about the ceasefire at all. You don't mention it. What? How do you, how are you going to finish those two very cruel wars without even mentioning
So
the ceasefire? One more sentence.
I was
And
really
then-
interested. Yeah, go on, Gideon.
And then the decoration of the hostages, really a decoration. He could have released those hostages 1 year ago, 10 months ago, 8 months ago, most of them. He wasn't ready for this. Now to stand in the UN and to use them as a slogan, as a decoration for his speech, ask the families what they think about him. Ask experts who know that we missed so many opportunities to release them. So really, I for many months or years, I was accused as a Bibist, as a supporter of Netanyahu, which is not exactly the case, but that's not important now. But today, I really felt embarrassed. This was the lowest propaganda, the cheapest propaganda, which doesn't serve Israel, I'm afraid.